I like to think of our body like an orchestra, and all of
Oh,
our
that's
systems,
beautiful.
each system needs to be on the same sheet of music, because if they're not, it's not going to be pretty.
Hi, everybody. This is Diane Gilman, sort of in the Christmas spirit, sort of not. Formerly known as the Queen of Jeans, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old, and Fashion Thursdays with Diane. But today we're talking Too Young to Be Old, and we've got a naturopathic practitioner. Boy, that's a big mouthful. And we're going to talk all about how you can make small shifts in your life that lead to huge changes in how you age, how you function, your lifespan, and your health span. So let's welcome Kimberly Verbeke. And Kimberly, you are so knowledgeable. So, one thing I always feel as we hit 50 or 55, and especially for women, as you go through that change of life,
Mhm.
nothing ever goes back to normal like it was before, ever. And you really have to become a partner to yourself
Mhm.
in your own health and customize your regime. And that's really what you're all about, right?
Yes, absolutely is what I'm all about.
So let's start with the basic, what you think are maybe the top two basic mistakes people make as they age. And I can tell you one of them. What? It doesn't matter what you eat, you're going to grow old anyway. Okay. But now we're going to respond to that and one more afterwards.
So if I had to add one onto that, it would, it's a toss up between not exercising and not prioritizing sleep, like the I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Ugh.
That'll age you quick.
Yeah, I did that in the profession I was in on tele-retail. You were in the studio from 10 p.m. to almost 3 a.m. You were back in the studio fully made up and on air at 8 a.m. and worked until 11 p.m. It was brutal. I was always in a terrible mood. I always felt sick. I mean, but it was a profession, so I did it. However, when it came to diet, I was also in a TV studio that offered just little snacky, super processed foods. So there was no backup to the lack of sleep. So let's talk, first of all, about customizable treatment per person that
Mhm.
they can do themselves in
Mhm.
their everyday choices to make longevity more pleasurable, quite frankly.
I'm a big believer that protein is a sorely missed macro as we age. And I find women in particular kind of get this like, ooh, aversion to meat. I've seen it over and over. Women that'll say, "Oh, I loved red meat when I was younger. I loved meat in general, and I just don't eat that much now, but I'm getting plenty of protein." And you can look at them and see they're undermuscled. Um, I'll
That's
put
me.
them, yeah, and I'll put them on my in body. And I'm like, okay, we need to work on your lean body mass, because there are so many correlations between lean body mass and health, health and longevity too.
For sure. However, the one thing that is a problem for me, I find, and I love red meat, and there is a filet mignon sitting in the refrigerator right now. So I got the best quality meat I
Hmm.
could. Um, Very difficult to digest, takes a long time to digest. And every time I have a big lump of red meat, I say to myself, I'm never doing that again. This is just disrupts my digestive system. What are your suggestions for that? Because trust me, when I was younger, and I told you in my household, where my parents came over from Ukraine and Russia, eating red meat at least 6 days a week was a sign of wealth. It was a sign that you made it in society. It was way beyond just nobody was talking about protein or any of the benefits of that. So, what would you suggest for older women who do say what I say, which is, well, I don't eat it very much anymore because, frankly, it's not very friendly to my digestive system? Do you have any advice?
I do.
Oh, good.
Ask your doctor to test your level of gastrin, right? We need gastrin to produce hydrochloric acid. And if we produce less of those as we age, and if those get too low, it's really hard to break down and digest meat.
Yeah.
So you can take a digestive enzyme with hydrochloric acid. I recommend going easy because if you're real low in stomach acid and you get this big influx of it, it can make you feel like you have heartburn.
Ugh.
So start off easy. You can even start off with some bitters to help you digest.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
usually it is a digestive enzyme and hydrochloric acid issue.
Now, I do try to fill in the protein thing, the blank there, with a lot of chicken, which
Mhm.
is pasture raised, cold chilled, da 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 da, and not farm raised, but wild fish. Is that
Mhm.
good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ultimately, we're looking at your total protein for the day. And I'm a huge fan of really men and women over 40 supplementing with an amino acid supplement. Um, an essential amino acid supplement is the 8 amino acids that make up protein. So it's already broken down for you. You can do it in a powder or a capsule, but it will help you hit that goal if you're struggling every day to hit that number.
I am, without a doubt.
Yeah, this can help fill in the gaps there, right? Because you need an amino acid reserve to heal and repair. So if you're not getting enough protein as it is, you're going to have right issues with your body being catabolic, breaking down your own muscle to try to get the amino acids it needs. And then if you experience an injury or get hurt, get sick, now you're really up a creek. So, amino acids are just a really lovely way to help support that protein nutrition in your
You,
body.
you know, the thing that is so frustrating, I think, to me and many of our followers is when you go to your GP or whoever your doctor is, they never want to talk about this stuff ever. Like my doctor said to me, "Ah, your cholesterol is so high. You have got to give up eggs." Well, okay. I gave up whipped cream. I gave up vanilla ice cream. I gave up sour cream. I gave up creme fraiche. And my cholesterol went back down to perfect. But I'm terrified to put an egg in my mouth. And frankly, that is one of my all time favorites. Sunny side up. Um, yum, yum, yum. Uh,
They're so nutritious
breakfast.
too.
Well, what do you say about that?
When it comes to cholesterol, there's a few things. 85% of our cholesterol is made in the liver. It's not what we eat.
Ooh.
A lot of times when people have really high cholesterol, two factors, right? It can be genetic, but many times the liver needs some support so it can clean up excess cholesterol because that's one of its jobs.
Wow.
So if we have a really healthy liver that's functioning well, it's better able to clean up excess cholesterol, and all cholesterol isn't the same in terms of cardiovascular risk. So I think, there are a ton of great books out there on it. I think it's an area where people have kind of been misled. Like,
Well, how do you clean up your liver? I mean, are there products out there on the market that are readily available where,
absolutely.
oh, good. Oh, here is my frustration. I'm almost 80.
Mhm.
I've managed to solve the majority of obvious health issues by just changing my diet, making sure I do some blood pumping exercise every day. But doctors no longer have the time
Yeah,
to truly talk to you about it. And most doctors are connected to a hospital system, which is a regime
I
that
know.
only wants them to talk about solutions that can make them money. So when you go to talk about something else, or should I do this, or could I do that, or can I do over the counter, you never get an answer. And I think personally, I wonder if you agree that as you age,
Mhm.
you really have to customize your life. You have to, I can't run anymore, but I can do forms of like chair yoga. I can certainly turn around and not order takeout,
Mhm.
but make direct foods, which I think is so important. Even though I'm really not the greatest cook, I have good intentions. But one thing I want to understand is, how does what you call protein synthesis, oh, you'll say it better than me. How does that benefit our longevity? Because we do have the potential to live to be 100, but who wants to live to be 100 if you don't feel good?
Exactly.
Uh-huh. I call it health span that
Yes.
marries to lifespan.
Yep. Absolutely. It's health spans where that's the magic, right?
Yeah.
So protein synthesis is important because when we're young, it only takes about 20 grams of protein to create protein synthesis in the muscle. By the time we're in our 40s, it takes 40 to 45 grams to create that same action. And so making sure you're getting this robust amount of protein when you start out your day is important, right? You kind
So
of
you think having a protein rich breakfast is a really good foundation for the day. But
I do.
Kimberly, what's protein besides an egg? What would you have for breakfast as protein?
Um, it just depends on what you like, right? I'm more of a savory person, so I'll eat leftovers from dinner for breakfast. I don't care. I mean, the other morning I had like 4 pickled boiled eggs, right? And that was my breakfast.
God. Okay.
Cottage cheese. You can do a protein shake if you want to. You can do, a breakfast taco that's full of meat. I mean, there's a whole lot of things you can do to create a protein rich breakfast. It's really just going to be what do you like? Like I have a few ladies that come to see me that they're like I want something like a pancake. So I gave them this recipe for these protein pancakes and they love them. They taste
Wow.
amazing and it gets them the protein they need to start
Yeah,
the day.
because for me, if I'm not going to eat an egg, and her voice and face are always right there in my brain, you're going to get high cholesterol again. Well, who knows whether I will or won't, but like right now, I'm kind of towing the line. I don't know what else I would do because the other thing I would do for breakfast is steak and eggs. I mean, I loved protein, but backed off of red meat because of digestion,
Mhm.
backed off of eggs because of cholesterol. And it kind of leaves me with eating a slice of bread. And I don't think carbohydrates, which the minute they hit your mouth turn into sugar, is a real great idea for breakfast. But that's kind of what I'm doing. So you say something that to me is so profound. Every cell of our body is composed of what we eat. And yet, in Western medicine and our society, honestly, there is no differentiation between super processed foods and direct foods,
Yeah.
good foods and prepared foods that have been sitting out and have a shelf life, and that kind of scares me. So the one thing I want to talk about, and you make a point that is unbelievable, you call hyper processed foods substance that is food like
Mhm.
rather than food. And yet, I tell this story. I have a friend my age in her 80s,
Mhm.
had to have surgery and was very upset about it and was talking about how her body's not responding the way she wants it to. And I said, do me a favor, tell me what you eat for a day. Ready for this? Cheetos, Doritos, canned queso dip, and frozen dinner. And I was like, I had my head in my hands. I was like, no, don't tell me you're not doing anything to help yourself. And the answer was, well, the supermarket wouldn't sell it if it wasn't good. Yeah, they would. Of
Yeah.
course they would. So let's talk about hyper-processed foods and what exactly you mean by food like and some of the dark side
Mhm.
of super processed, what it does to your body and what it does not provide.
Yeah, so I mean, you have these prepackaged things that have 30 ingredients, most of which you don't even recognize. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't feel like a good sign to me. The other thing is, what food can you sit on a shelf and come back a year later and it's not rotten and it's ready to eat? No real food that I know of is going to just sit for 3 years. Oh, this can says 3 years. Like that's not normal.
What is real food to you as opposed to super processed? Let's just explain that to
Yeah,
the
real
audience.
real food to me is food that we recognize what it is, right? It's a piece of salmon or it's a steak and it's some, Brussels sprouts and it's a baked sweet potato
So
or
fresh, still in its original form,
yes,
and it's probably got an expiration date of about 3 days to
you got
it.
it. To
Yeah.
me, that's real food. And to me, those are things with nutrients that nourish our bodies.
It's interesting. 2017, 18, I had breast cancer. There were a lot of foods you couldn't eat. You had a nutritionist who was on call 24 hours a day. But it really wasn't about nutrition. It was about the fact that so many foods sit for so long. They
Hmm.
garner bacteria.
Hmm.
And when you have no immune system, they can make you really, really sick. When I got through all of the protocol, the chemotherapy and the radiation, I finally was allowed to eat something I was interested in again, like caviar, like even avocado.
Hmm.
Um, but it wasn't about nutrition. It was just about safety. I had a big project ahead of me. I was going right back on television, didn't even wait a week after the last radiation. Actually, went straight to the airport to get on a plane to go to the TV studio from the last radiation treatment. I had to grow back my hair. I could not live with no hair or spotty hair. And I put together a self-proclaimed diet that had a lot of salmon in it,
Hmm.
a lot of red meat protein in it to do just that. And you know what? I Nobody can ever unconvince me of the fact that I really think it worked. What are your thoughts on keeping your beauty, keeping your body shape, keeping a lustrous head of hair with eating the correct proteins?
It matters. I mean, when you go back to every cell in your body is made up of what you eat. If you have adequate nutrition, your body can keep your skin healthy, give you healthy, beautiful hair, give you, muscles and help you burn fat as energy. What we put in our mouth, it's the most control we have over our health every single day.
Yeah.
And when that conversation isn't happening with someone that's sick and their doctor, I feel like they're missing the biggest area of opportunity for that person to heal.
You know, I had a GP, and when she told me you can't eat eggs and you can't do this and you can't do that, and I'm putting you on statins, my body, I've always depended on my body to have an excellent response system. So I said, no, don't do it for 6 months. I want to see if I can eat my way out of carbohydrates. When I walked in 6 months later, she said, don't even talk to me about any of this. I've already ordered you the statins. They're waiting for you. She had no belief. We have become a drug dependent nation. We are never told by the medical community, heal thyself,
No.
that you can do so much for yourself. Now, one thing that I think is crucial within that picture, and you say it, and it's very interesting, is if you have been eating super processed foods for a great part of your life and you see the danger in it now, and believe me, there is so much coming to the surface about how it lowers your IQ, it way lowers your longevity chances, it ups senility. I mean, none of it is good. It's not a pretty picture. So you say that when you start eating real foods,
Mhm.
your palate will eventually change
For
and
sure.
crave those foods. How does that happen?
In terms of the science behind it, I'm not sure, but I know it is a real thing that people get used to what they eat, and that's what their palate craves. And when they taste something really different, it's like off-putting to them. And it's just like little kids, right? Have you ever seen a little kid and they're eating steak and broccoli and whatever, healthy thing their mom puts on their plate, and then there's the other person that's like, oh, my kid won't eat anything except chicken nuggets and french fries. Yeah, because that's what you feed them.
I did a collection of clothing when I was in fashion for someone who was coming on TV and was from a very wealthy family, had 4 kids, and I thought it was so fascinating, and lived in Beverly Hills and was connected to the entertainment industry, which, as we all know, is very unforgiving
Mm.
for anybody aging, and very unforgiving for being overweight. She had cooks, that 2 private chefs that just made meals for the 4 children. Those children had never tasted a potato. If they were going to get mashed potatoes, it was mashed cauliflower. If they were going to get French fries, it was going to be yucca fries. But she made sure that they never got a taste for carbs,
Hmm.
never got a taste really for fried food.
Hmm.
And it was always a direct food that was sort of masquerading as a McDonald's entree. But it was, she just said, I don't want my children to have an ounce of fat on them, and I don't want them to have, more importantly, those chemicals in their body.
I mean, it's just wild. I've seen it over and over with people with their kids, and I saw it when I was raising my daughter, right? I mean, sure, they're around people and they're exposed to things, but ultimately, if what you have at home is healthy food, that's what they get used to.
Yeah, because I'm almost 80. When I grew up, there was no takeout, there was no call a number and get a pizza. And plus, we lived sort of way out in the country. Um, and there was absolutely no fat. The fast food was, you went to a drive-in where all the people that were serving you were on roller skates.
But they still went in and cooked the food you ordered.
And I got a ham, and you got a hamburger, and actually it tasted pretty fresh. So you say that very often people choose taste over quality. But do you believe, as I do, that the more you veer towards direct foods
Hmm.
and a decision you make. You are in control of your life and your diet. That your decision is quality over health. Your taste buds will follow.
Absolutely. And I always tell people, tune into how you feel. Someone will come in and say, oh, like every time I eat, I'm super bloated and uncomfortable.
What do you do about that? What can you do about that?
It depends on what they have going on, right? I mean, they could have something bacterial that's causing an issue, or they may just be eating really crummy food that's causing gastric distress. Um, when you start to clean up the diet, and you're tuned into how you feel, often you're like, oh. So my daughter, who is 24, will say to me sometimes, like, you never eat sweets, you never eat this or that. And I'm like, no, I do. I just have reached an age where I stop and think, how is that going to make me feel? And if something makes me feel yucky for a while, I just don't really have a big interest in eating it.
This is the first Christmas ever where I said, I'm not going to have apple pie. I'm just going to have an apple. I went for really direct foods, and I'll tell you why. Many women actually gain weight during treatment for breast cancer. I gained 30 pounds. A lot of it was steroid,
Yeah.
water weight. But every time I go to think about putting a food
Hmm.
like some concoction that came out of the bakery that is just outrageous and probably 2,000 calories, I think about how unfun it was
Yeah.
to lose that 30
Mhm.
pounds.
Yeah.
However, I have to say, um, I think that I have really reshaped my palate
Hmm.
so that when I eat a healthy food, I find something within it that is very, very satisfying. And
Hmm.
and the truth is, I just went on a complete cleanup. I just did a minor detox. I wouldn't give up coffee and just wouldn't. And I could not believe how eating healthy food, really saying to yourself, I'm
Hmm.
going to throw everything out
Hmm.
that has been alive for 2 years or more,
Hmm.
except Italian pasta. I'm not going to cave into high sugar, high corn syrup, high fructose
Hmm.
foods.
And
I cannot believe how much better I feel. It is shocking.
having like something there for yourself, if you know, like, okay, gosh, this is a time of year when there's a lot of baked goods and I love them, and have I start craving it. Have something like, I have some fresh pears at home right now. And the last couple nights after dinner, I'm like, oh, I could eat one of those pears. And they're so sweet and so
Yes.
delicious, but you
Yeah.
don't feel yucky after you eat it.
I think it's a matter of cleansing yourself out enough
Hmm.
that you begin to understand that you've been feeling yucky. I think, and we'll end on this note. Would you agree that a lot of people give up on themselves after the age of 50 or 55? And when they feel yucky from eating foods that maybe they've eaten all their lives and their attitude is, I'm not giving that up.
Hmm.
Yeah, old age is giving enough up, enough pleasures up. They don't understand how much power they have over their own body, their own function every day, and their general health.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a lot that is in your control. You also have to make up your mind about it,
Ah,
right? Because I do think there's a mental piece to all of this. Whether
total.
it's, I started out in geriatrics, and there were people in our facility we had a little lady that was 101, and she was so spicy and so spunky. I loved her. She didn't see herself as old, and I don't think anyone else did either. then there were people that were in their 70s that were like, oh, I'm way too old for that, and you're like, wait, what? So I
I hear
think that,
that a lot from
yeah,
my contemporaries.
there's a big piece of mindset about things. And I think when you have the right mindset, that's the first piece you have to get right.
I think the other thing too that really shocks me is women in my age group, let's say 65 to 80 and beyond, were not living in an environment that said don't eat. We didn't even know, I mean, I didn't even know until recently the word over processed.
Mhm.
So I think the hardest people to convince that they've got and to set goals for themselves and achieve them, and they're all really achievable by choice,
Mhm.
because you grew up with the government not banning food, not
Mhm.
telling you what to eat or not eat. And quite frankly, when you see the statistics, the huge jump, unfortunately, in cancer, especially colon cancer, for people under 50, the government, if it was really responsible, would start talking about the pitfalls of eating fast food that is all filler and very few nutrients. But they don't.
Yeah.
So, they're saying now that certain forms of cancer are no longer going to be an old
Mhm.
person's disease. Oh, you get older, you don't have an immune system, blah, blah, blah. I want to end with one last question. What is your opinion and experience that eating direct foods without a lot of chemicals and preservatives actually helps build your immune system?
Oh my goodness, huge.
Yeah.
It has a massive impact. It has, right? So think about inflammation in your body. Let's say you're eating a really highly processed diet and your body's very inflamed. It affects everything. Like we've kind of been taught that our body is all these separate little boxes beside each other. I like to think of our body like an orchestra, and all of
Oh,
our
that's
systems,
beautiful.
each system needs to be on the same sheet of music, because if they're not, it's not going to be pretty.
So really, what you just said is so amazing. Your body is a symphony,
Yeah.
and if you're not giving the proper set of notes, music sheets to any part of your body,
Nutrition.
this, yeah, the symphony is lessened. And I really, I had a birthday in August. I became 79. Easier to say, almost 80. But I had gone on a rampage before my birthday. I had had like 6 weeks of each separate group of friends celebrating my birthday. And it was like, oh my God, so much sugar, so much birthday cake, so much incredible rich meals and red meats and pastas. And I felt like garbage on my 79th birthday. And it was like light bulb moment,
Yeah.
clean up your act. And I did it almost immediately. And I did it with a lot of knowledge I'd accrued from doing these podcasts
Yeah.
with naturopaths and nutritionists like you. And I could not believe, boom, it was like night and day how much better I felt. Well, I want to tell you, Kimberly, I don't think this should be our last discussion. You are just a wealth of good information about aging more efficiently, aging more successfully, and aging more pleasurably. I thank you so much. And we'll list how you can get in touch with Kimberly Verbeke in all our graphics. Kimberly, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.